Hey there, my name's Niandra, and now that we've had some time to get used to Mercy's weird mini rework, I wanted to VOD review myself with a match I played on my ult. It's around mid-masters and here are my stats. So I played 6 matches of Season 3 Mercy in one day. I won 5 in a row, usually with very high damage amp because I would just move around less. This VOD is the loss after a long play session where my mental is starting to slip. If you haven't seen my commentary VODs before, I try to choose games I think are interesting over the ones where I play well. There's more to talk about, and I think content creators put too much pressure on themselves to never make mistakes, even though everyone is all the time. Anyway, this match is a loss, but I don't think Mercy's nerfs had anything to do with that, we just made some team mistakes towards the end. As for my thoughts on the changes now, I actually don't think Mercy is weak or bad whatsoever. She's actually pretty strong, but she's a lot less fun to play because of how clunky and sluggish she is. If Mercy mains are willing to adapt, I think they'll be fine, but I also don't blame them for not wanting to because Mercy's identity just feels really muddied now. To be honest, I'm quite impressed that they managed to make Mercy changes that just upset everybody, but I'm also not surprised because my literal thirst for upon reading the patch notes was, who are these changes for? I am briefly gonna get stuck on terrain and not be able to reach my Genji in time. Enemies seem pushed back enough that I think I can take a moment to calculate if this can be crouch rezzed and then go for it. Ana is injured in the back, and a part of me wants to ignore it because she seems safe enough that she can just self-regen with the support passive, but since I just use res and there's a tracer about, I decide to play safe. I think being able to visualize Mercy's 15-meter beam length is super crucial now, because when I'm with Echo, I kinda want to save GA for when I need to retain connection or reposition from damage. I could heal Ana to full, but enemy tracer is down, so she can probably just self-regen, and I want to focus on my allies pushing up since they're more likely to take damage. I did want to help Orisa here, but I didn't think I could do so without putting myself in danger. I activate Valkyrie to see if I can stabilize Orisa, but my angle is too awkward, so I'm way too slow to get my beam on her. Once she dies, it looks like my mindset fully switches to backing off because I stop beaming our Echo for Genji, who isn't center attention. My logic would have been Echo is about to be focused by the entire enemy team, so there's no point in trying to help at all if all I'm doing is delaying her inevitable respawn time. However, with Valkyrie's increased healing and her mobility, I kinda wish I had tried to keep her alive here. Unfortunately, there is a bit of a stagger here because our Genji dies once our Orisa gets back, who then just also dies. You can attach your beam through these tiny little gaps, so I want to give it one try before I move on. Now that we've won a fight, let's push up and take space with our team. Genji goes into the hotel, which I'm not brave enough to follow, and probably wouldn't even with old GA, what with the Junkrat and all. I watch Genji's movements through the walls so I can see when he's in view again, and safely damage boost Orisa, who isn't a bad target at all. Not much I could have done for Genji without putting myself at risk here. I turn around during the res to face my allies in case I need distance for safety. Since they have Junkrat, there is a chance he could throw his concussive mine through the doorway and knock me into the air. With reses like that, you kinda need to make an immediate decision whether to do it because enemies will be pushing up and getting closer the longer you wait. I immediately GA after hearing Reptire, and then I'm like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. So I just try to keep distance from my team. If the tire is gonna get me, then I want it to get just me, but luckily I'm able to hold out until GA is ready again. I fly to Genji, and once my beam is attached to him, I immediately cancel GA and just fall to the ground. I think microplays like this can be really helpful, where you want to cancel GA as early as possible to get it back faster again. I activate Valkyrie because we're pushing in before Ana is back, and my teammates are quite split, so double beam length should be helpful. Also, the replay system coloring gets a bit confusing here with 2 sigmas, which apologies. Okay, I'm just gonna let this sequence play and then comment on it. Alright, to rewind, I break line of sight on our Orisa to dodge Sigma ult, and then I back off down the stairs to dodge High Noon, as that feels faster than trying to reach the pillar in front of me. This then means I'm really slow to get my beam reattached to Orisa. I initially thought I played this sequence really poorly, but after rewatching, I kinda think I did what I had to do to prioritize myself. So I respawn as my Ana dies, but then we get a pick on their BAP. I heal at Echo, but as soon as enemy Mercy dies, I immediately pivot my attention to allies that are more pushed up so I can keep them stable against enemies that have no healers nearby. It works out, but a part of me kinda regrets not spending a second to top Echo up. My team pushes up even more, and Ana won't have LOS, so I need to follow. A badly timed GA followed by one where I get stuck on a roof causes me to panic, so not the most graceful follow-up, and our Genji sadly dies because I don't know what I'm beaming here, there's just a mess of colours in front of me. I go for the res on Genji, and I wanna say it's because I thought he would get our ult respawn, and it's really important to cap here, but I just wanted to pad my stats. Anyway, I want to rewind this sequence. So as my allies push up, you may notice we have no one on cart. Well, this is absolutely fine. If I stayed on cart here, my allies wouldn't have had heals and the enemy team might have been able to push past. It was better to wipe the enemy team with more resources then cap in one go, rather than continuously move the payload but potentially lose out on capping because allies had no healing. Because both Echo and Genji are on fire, I should be swapping my beam between the two so they're both healthy, but I screw up here and basically just beam Echo. It's mostly just my reaction time being poor, and well, if it isn't the consequences of my own actions, because if I hadn't rezzed earlier to stat pad, I could have brought him back. It's unfortunate because we have a pick on their Ashe, so bringing back Genji would actually make us up one instead of even. I think this section here is a good example of positioning post-GA nerf. I have chosen a place that enemies can't easily access with some cover that should hide LOS and just kinda stay there rather than dart about with Echo. I ping enemy Sojourn and our Echo goes towards her, placing her ahead of the rest of my team. Instead of flying to Echo, I just drop off high ground and float to cover, which I then peek in and out of. I activate Valkyrie to heal our critical Orisa, but then our Genji uses Blade and gets nano boosted, and that immediately becomes my highest priority. The enemy is going to be distracted by him, so they probably won't touch Orisa, who can then just be healed by Ana. A really nice Blade there. So the enemy team can probably recontest before we cap, so I need to be thinking about where I want to be positioned once they start coming out of spawn. I decide on high ground and then pick the one section of this area that can't be stood on, but thankfully it doesn't matter. A great round all in all. Alright, on to round 2 where we're defending. Okay, so I was messing about with my settings basically up until the round started. You can see me come back to life and I had no idea where my team was or who we had. Our Genji is also a bit late, so let's damage boost Orisa for now. Since the other DPS is Sombra, I really want to pocket Genji as much as I can. He pushes forward and instead of sticking to him with backwards GA, I jump to the side for no speed penalty and go behind cover. We get pushed back a bit and our Sombra takes damage, but I don't react because I assume she can just translocate out of there, which unfortunately she doesn't do. I then watch Genji through the walls so I can wait for him to come around the corner. I initially don't want to GA to him, but end up doing so anyway because Reinhardt is pushed up and I want a backwards GA for distance. Generally the way I'm playing here is I won't not heal Orisa when she's above half health, but I also don't prioritize it or completely commit to doing so. I really want to push damage boost on Genji and her as well as much as I can here. Here I fly to our soldier and immediately backwards GA out of habit, which is going to leave me vulnerable. In this instance, I could have just walked forward or stayed put because soldier is coming towards me and my beam would have connected fine. These are the kind of GAs you need to flush out. I actually meant to fly to soldier here while looking at the rest of my team, but of course the game is going to think I meant them as a target. What I could have done was flick my camera view to the floor to guarantee the snapback. Because enemy Hanzo is dead and the other DPS is Genji, I am willing to expose myself to the enemy team to try and get my beam on soldier, which I fumble with the GA cooldown. Since playing this particular match, I would say I've adapted to GA's cooldown nerf fairly well, outside of occasional muscle memory that's now bad habits. The cooldown in Valkyrie still sometimes trips me up, and here Genji pushes up right as my ult ends, and it's frustrating because there's just nothing I could do for him. I want to get my beam on soldier here, but there's an open choke in front of me, so I fly backwards GA and twist in the air to fall behind cover. With backwards GA being 20% slower, this was very dangerous, I think. The safer play would have been to keep beaming Orisa while walking left to meet him. I thought about cutting this bit out, but I think it's fine. So Soldier dies and everyone is talking over each other to say I should res him, but I swear I can hear Ryan coming towards me. I just freeze up because there's a part of me that wants to please my team, but I don't think it's a good idea, so I end up neither resing Soldier nor moving away because my brain just gets tied together. I get punished for it, and ultimately this is on me. I don't blame anyone here. It's just something I have to push past as someone with sensory issues and hypersensitivity to noise, and I don't always succeed. I am, however, going to skip past this fight because we basically just lose instantly to Bat Window and Nanoblade, and there wasn't much to it. As we come out of spawn again, I'm thinking to myself, they didn't use Earth Shatter and definitely have it. I want to keep to the side of my team rather than behind because I think Ryan will use it to stop us from touching. As we push out, I want to maintain that distance. I literally super jump instantly as I go past the corner in case of Shatter. I shouldn't res Genji because we've won the fight and he should be able to get back faster than the enemy team can regroup, but the little Ratatouille piloting my brain wants to stat pad more because learning from your mistakes is for losers. Defenders get such high ground advantage here that I want to push damage boost as hard as possible. Even without seeing the enemy, I can make a vague guess as to where they are based on how my teammate plays and back up here. Once again, I am expecting Earth Shatter, so distance and corners are crucial. Earth Shatter has this tiny delay between the voice line starting and the hammer hitting the ground, which allows me to dodge it. I'm really happy with this because even though I feel like my reaction time has gotten worse with age, I know I can still do well if I put the effort in. One thing I did notice when watching this VOD is that the enemy team gets great value from their back windows. They are used really well and nullified my extra heals a lot this match. So Orisa dies and I remember teammates kept saying we should use ults here, meaning me, and got frustrated when I didn't. Without our tank, touching the point before they capped here was going to be really difficult, so I get why they wanted me to do it, but I think it would have been a really awful idea. My main concern is that the doorway is just really low, so Ryan could easily get some swings on me here. If this was like, I don't know, the second point of Midtown or something, maybe I would have gone for it. Enemy Symmetra uses her wall, so I decide to Valk in response because my healing beams go through it. My beam briefly breaks off Orisa because terrain blocks line of sight and my staff model blocks the terrain, so I don't notice. I absolutely should have repositioned right side behind my team after using Valkyrie, but I tunnel vision watching our Orisa, who is right side next to the entire enemy team and a sim wall. I basically watch Orisa to see how I can distribute my beams on her. Plus with their DPS being Sim and Genji, I knew I could get away with positioning like this, but that also doesn't mean I should have. After I activated Valkyrie here, I flew forward and immediately backwards GA out of habit, which I also think slowed me down. I want to pocket the teammate that allows me to play safely from high ground, but enemies are slightly too far back. So to get to Orisa, I push forward with a quick GA so I can attach my beam before her ult is over. What I was going to say is it might have been better to like float to Orisa, get my beam on her and backwards GA so I could remain in this backspace. However, she is a little too far forward to do that gracefully, plus Genji flanked behind, so I would actually be in a worse position for that. Okay, so what happened there is I did a bad GA right as Genji ulted, so I just disconnected my beam and stood still hoping he wouldn't notice me, and he just didn't. Even if I wanted to damage boost Kiriko, I'd probably stick with healing, so I also get healed. Not really anything I can do here with no constant health regen and GA's cooldown, but at least our time is already a lot better than theirs. Alright, let's look at round 3. I start round 3 basically the same way as our last offense. I'm not super happy that our Orisa is playing this corner instead of on the bridge or further up, considering the enemy only has a minute. We seemingly step back for no reason, so I try to damage boost Genji, who's most forward, to encourage aggression. I should just avoid healing Orisa as much as I can here because 1, we have Moira, and 2, if Orisa is not making space, then I need to make it with damage boost. I touched upon it earlier, but I've noticed a lot of my Mercy gameplay just sorta looks like this now, where I just keep myself moving and try to save GA for specific purposes. It's not the end of the world, but I do miss being more mobile. I think ultimately, no matter what I did here, the outcome would be the same, but I dislike how I move on top of the bridge to match as Sojourn, because it places terrain between me and Orisa. I am slower to help her than I could have been, and again, I don't think it mattered here because she's really being focused, but that doesn't mean I should brush mistakes off like this because there will be matches with similar moments that do matter. My heart kinda sank when I heard Genji use ult, because I'm just like, we're starting to crack. Once our Moira faded towards the enemy team, I should have completely stopped healing Sojourn to avoid delaying her death and potentially desyncing the team. At that point, I just want to get some ult charge with my pistol and get started on respawning ASAP. So here, our Moira stayed alive too long and died right after the enemy capped, meaning she's going to respawn back here, so now we're going to have to wait around to regroup and give them some distance for free. Our Genji pushes ahead before everyone is back, and I'm so scared for him. With old GA, I would feel somewhat nervous due to the stakes, but I would be confident enough to follow him with backwards GAs that keep me safe. While here, I don't even want to do that. Okay, we've got to pick on their Genji. I Valk, Moira ults, I'm going all in on damage boost, even ignoring our critical Sojourn because I want the fight ended quickly. Alright, nice. Could've gone better, could've gone worse. So let's move on to the last round. I remember my tank suggesting pharmacy in voice and immediately feeling concerned. You know, our current picks have been working out kind of fine. Although to be fair, Pharah would be really nice if the enemy had Sim again, so I decided to push my worries down and just hope this player is confident on Pharah. Also that I felt confident pocketing Pharah still. Once Pharah is on the other side of this roof and no longer just poking, I decide to position on high ground instead of staying in the air with her. I fly to Pharah because I did not think my beam would retain connection here. This corner is really nice to peek from, so I use it for cover until my allies are pushed up enough that I also need to push up. I distinctly remember looking at the scoreboard here to figure out what ults they might have, and that's kind of why I just wandered into view of the high ground platform. I should have stuck to the wall like this, as that would let me beam Pharah without giving view of me. There is just no reason for me to be in the air with Pharah here when I have such a nice piece of cover. Even with old GA, I think I might have still played this way, assuming Pharah kept near the ground. Unfortunately, we lose this fight pretty fast because enemy Sim and Ryan rush together, plus my recording drops frames, so I'm gonna skip this. I do note that our Pharah is holding onto ult, which makes me kinda nervous. Once we get to the corner up ahead, I will step on Moira's toes by healing the Orisa that Moira will also be healing. Normally I would leave her to handle it and use it as an opportunity to damage boost, but with so little time left, I want to play safe so Orisa doesn't get burst down by, I don't know, random damage. Honestly though, I think Moira maybe should have let me heal her more because
I must recharge.
She is going into what might be the final fight out of charge. I activate Valkyrie earlier than I would like to, mostly for Orisa who is pushed up. She is a very sturdy tank though, so I feel I can distribute my beam across the team. Moira gets one shot by a damaged amplifier strike, and I'm still waiting for Pharah to ult. Then Orisa rotates in front of the corner, and I will be honest, I didn't expect this from her, so I am just not in position to help. The reason for my Valkyrie positioning is that I'm playing with the assumption that she would back up and fall back to me like this if she was in trouble. I mean, at this point, things are pretty over. I dive forwards towards the cart to try and touch, so overtime is triggered in case an ally can get to it, but that isn't happening either. It is kind of sad that we lost this one because I definitely think it was winnable, but hey, that's just how it goes sometimes. Thank you so much for watching, feel free to like, comment and subscribe, and have a nice day.